Hi, it's Christina with the Sisyphean Journal. Today's August 22nd. I've already covered one anniversary for today, and you can find it down below. What I'm going to cover today is a case where I only know a little bit because the woman's death was just covered in a medical journal article, but there's some very important background for you to understand. So the woman that Mark Crutcher identified as April Rowe was 17 years old when she underwent a saline abortion in New York City on August 20th of 1971. The next day, she was admitted to the hospital, indicating that this risky abortion was being performed on an outpatient basis. April was in shock with a high fever and was treated there until her death on August 22nd. So, what is a saline abortion? Now, completely take off the table what an experience this was like for the baby. You can go ahead and imagine that if you want to. I think it's pretty horrible. It was hardly a pleasant experience for the mother. The abortionist would take a gigantic syringe and remove as much amniotic fluid as he could from the uterus. He then replaced that amniotic fluid with a concentrated saline salt solution that would poison and kill the fetus. The woman would then go into labor and expel the usually dead fetus. And saline abortions became very popular in Japan immediately after World War II. But within the Japanese medical community, the word quickly spread that this method was not satisfactory. Too many women were being injured and killed. Over 70 papers were published in the Japanese medical community reporting the hazards of saline abortions, with at least 60 maternal deaths. The Japanese Obstetrical and Gynecological Society condemned the technique and it was quickly abandoned. But the Japanese doctors kept news of the trouble among themselves until Western abortionists discovered these kinds of abortions and embraced them with great enthusiasm. Now, two Japanese doctors, Takashi Wagatsuma and Yukio Manabe, broke the silence. Wagatsuma wrote, "It is, I think, worthwhile to report its rather disastrous consequences which we experienced in Japan." Manabe wrote, "It is now known that any solution placed within the uterus can be absorbed rather rapidly into the general circulation through the vascular system of the uterus and placenta. Thus, any solution used in the uterus for abortion must be absolutely safe, even if given by direct intravenous injection. A solution deadly to the fetus may be equally toxic and dangerous to the mother. In spite of the accumulating undesirable reports, the use of hypertonic saline for abortion is still advocated and used in the United States and Great Britain. I would like to call attention to the danger of the method and would predict the future occurrence of deaths until this method is entirely forgotten in these countries." So, whenever you are hearing me talk about or reading about a saline abortion death here in the United States, this is long after Wagatsuma and Manabe sounded the alarm. And American abortionists evidently didn't care. And as Western abortionists gained experience with saline abortions, other grim reports arose. A British study published in 1966 found that the saline would enter the mother's bloodstream and cause brain damage. Swedish researchers noticed an unacceptably high rate of complications and deaths. So Japan had already abandoned this method. Sweden and the Soviet Union followed suit in the late 1960s. But for whatever reason, American abortionists were completely deaf to those warnings. When New York completely repealed its abortion law, doctors had tremendous leeway in how they practiced. In New York City in particular, it became popular to just inject the woman with the saline in the office and send her home with instructions to just show up at a hospital when she goes into labor. That is at least a highly irresponsible way to use an abortion technique that was risky even when performed in hospitals under close medical supervision. And needless to say, women started dying from these reckless saline abortions. And April is one of many women who died in that beautiful window of opportunity between limited legalization and Roe's absolute free-for-all. Now, the Supreme Court could have looked at these deaths and decided that enough was enough. That, no, you can't just do it anyhow you please. Oh, you're a doctor, fine. We're not going to tell you not to endanger women. They chose instead to trust bogus reports, such as a review of patient records from the Center for Reproductive and Sexual Health, which charted a dead patient as pink, responsive, and alert, and just figured that legalization would magically make everything okay. If you follow the link below, I've got all this information, plus other women I know about who had the dubious distinction of dying when New York was paving the way for abortionists to kill women without having to worry about legal consequences.